Hi everyone, I am Dr. B. Vinmil, Assistant Professor of English, Vivani Perumal College for Women, Virudhunagar. In today's video, we are going to see an introduction to William Shakespeare's Macbeth. Macbeth is a tragedy written by William Shakespeare in 1606. It was originally published in 1623. The play was based on the historical king Macbeth of Scotland. Shakespeare mainly based his historical plays from the account in Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles, a compilation of British history. This play is also taken from the historical account of Macbeth. It's a tragedy in 5 acts. Among the 4 Shakespeare's tragedies, it is the shortest one. Usually Shakespeare's tragedy has some good subplot to support the main plot, but we find no subplot in Shakespeare's Macbeth. Let's see the setting of Macbeth. The story is mainly set around Scotland. In the beginning of the play, there was a fight near, that is the battle near Duncan's castle in Forest. Then the setting shifts to Macbeth's castle in Inverness on Dunsinane Hill. Fife is where Macbeth lives and where his family is killed. Macbeth meets the 3 witches, the most important and pivotal element in this play, in a desert place which is called Scotland Moor. And there is one more scene in England, only one scene in England as well, when Macbeth meets Malcolm, when Malcolm leaves in fear of getting the blame from Macbeth as a murder of his own father. To avoid patricide, and he left Scotland for England, and Macbeth follows him. And this time period is in the 11th century. Now let's see the plot structure of the play Macbeth. As we have already seen in the last video, Freytag pyramid, which is known for Shakespeare's tragedy. Now let us see the Freytag pyramid structure for the play Macbeth. The first act exposes the characters and setting. Here we could find the 3 witches who foretell the Scottish general Macbeth that he will become the king of Scotland. This is the place where his ambition was fueled. And in the second act, we could find Macbeth being in a conflict whether to kill the king to become the king, or to be honest as his conscience instructs him. But encouraged by his wife Lady Macbeth, he kills the king and becomes the new king in the third act, where we could see the rising action of the play. The positivity happens for the king. But in this climax, he has chosen a choice of killing people to come out of his paranoia, and this choice, which makes him to be a continuous murderer, decides his fate and his fall. So in the following action, we could see the witches warning Macbeth of Macduff, who is a man not born of woman, and they foretell once again about his death. That means they indirectly tell him that he won't be murdered by a man but a man born out of a not born out of a woman, and he cannot be vanquished until the Birnam forest moves towards Duncan hills. Such impossible events never would happen. So Macbeth was so confident about his voluminous power, but Malcolm, the king's late king's son, and Macduff, a loyal Thane, gather army to overthrow Macbeth after knowing his disloyalty and cruelty to his friends and the king. Later on in the fifth act, we could find Lady Macbeth dies out of her fear for the death or fear for the guilt he has crime she has committed. Out of guilty conscience, she commits suicide. The civil war erupts. With frustration and fury, Macbeth fights and dies desperately. Um, until the end, he could find a brave Macbeth uh, who who is a hero turned villain of the play. That's why the bloodshed battle uh, denotes the denouement of the hero, and finally, the good wins the evil. That is the moral and tone of the play. And next, we can see the characters, important characters. Very few characters we could see in Macbeth. The first and foremost, we have to see the main protagonist of the play, Macbeth. He is a Scottish general, and he is the Thane of Glamis Thane. It's something like Duke. Uh, he is a brave soldier and a powerful man, but his fatal confidence in the witches' prophecies, that is, he would become a king of Scotland, turns him into a power monger, and he became irrevocably evil as days pass on. To to hide the secret of his regicide, he commits more murders. So he turns into a ruthless murderer. But it seems that he better suited to the battlefield than to political intrigue. That's why he couldn't stand for a long time in the on the throne. Uh, there comes the moments of terrible guilt and inner turmoil uh, in the almost in the end of the play. After Lady Macbeth dies and after the hallucination of Banquo's ghost, his inner turmoil almost forced him into a corner of desperation. And finally, in the final battle, after mustering up some courage, he fights uh, very courageously, faces all the enemies with much bravado. And we could find Macbeth dies at the end with the with the much exhibition of his courage and his for his cruelty. He lost his life. And then the second important character in the play is Lady Macbeth. She is Macbeth's wife. She is a deeply ambitious woman. We could find, because of his ambition to deck herself with the crown of Scotland, she just uh, goads her husband and to pursue the throne. His lust for power and position makes her to manipulate her husband. This sense of guilt of murdering the king and his husband's family, friend's family, makes her slide into a madness. This guilt completely takes away her sleep from her, unable to deal with all the legacy of the crimes, the continuous impact of sequential murders, made her to wash away the invisible blood stain. Shakespeare has excellently presented this scene uh, in the form of objective relativity. And then we could find Lady Macbeth committing suicide. There she meets the pathetic end. And thirdly, we could see the three witches. They are the characters of the play mostly call them as weird sisters. They are the one who fuel, fuel the vaulting ambition in the mind of Macbeth. So here they just act as puppeteers to move away with the emotions of Macbeth. They are mere prophets. Handling the supernatural elements in this play is the place where Shakespeare has exhibited his originality and creativity. Throughout the play, we could say their famous dialogues, double and trouble, fair is foul and foul is fair, which serves as the um, main theme of the play, where Macbeth's foul play makes him a tragic hero, and they establish a sense of moral confusion in the character of Macbeth. They appear three times in the play. In the first time, in the first scene, and especially in the last third act, they warn Macbeth of his death. It's the most important scene also. And then the next character is Banquo. He is the Thane of Lochaber. He is the good ally of Macbeth, but he serves as a foil to Macbeth. Shakespeare has created him to have a contrast with Macbeth. He has his presence as a human and a ghost throughout the play. And Banquo is skeptical of the witches. He questions them, he interrogates them, whereas Macbeth blindly believes their words. Witches' prophecy uh, to him was he would never become a king, but he would be get a line of kings. That means he can never uh, captures the throne, but his children can become kings. We could find Banquo in history also. We could find Banquo is an ancestor of the King James First. And in the play we could find after having skeptical about Macbeth ascending the throne after murdering the King Duncan. um, he was murdered by Macbeth by hiring three assassinators, and Banquo's influence escapes in that assassin assassination, and he returns. Banquo just returns to haunt Macbeth at the banquet scene in Act 3, Scene 4, where Banquo's ghost made a dramatic irony, and it just uh, scares the king. And in a vision granted by the three witches also, Banquo appears, wherein Macbeth sees a long line of kings descended from Banquo. And then we have King Duncan. Uh, he's a fictional character. As a fictional character, he was a sensitive, insightful, and generous father figure, whereas in history he was not so. Uh, that is in Holinson's chronicles, he is portrayed. He is really presented as, or he is really given as an incompetent, feeble, and slothful king. Um, The father of Malcolm and Donald being he could not retain his throne. Being a kind person, he believed the words, venomous words of Lady Macbeth and Macbeth. His murder signals the onset of the chaos in the play. So he becomes the victim of a well-plotted regicide planned by Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Malcolm is elder son of King Duncan, Macbeth's foremost rival in the play. He also suspected the murder of Duncan, uh, so he flees to England, where he gathers some English army to regain the throne after killing Macbeth in the final battle. And here comes the Lord Macbeth, the most important character, because he is the main antagonist of the play. Where when Macbeth is the protagonist, he is the main antagonist. Macbeth was killed by Macduff. He was the Thane of Fife, a man born not of woman, as per the witches' prophecy. That means he was not born naturally. His mother's womb was cut off and he was taken out. And he was the first one who discovers King's corpse, and he suspects Macbeth's regicide, and he refuses to attend the coronation. He flees to England and joins hand with Malcolm to gather the English army. And the witches warn Macbeth of Macduff. After the banquet given by Macbeth, Duff's wife, Macduff's wife and children were killed. As an avenging hero, he kills Macbeth in the final act. So we could see Macduff as a loyal general or loyal soldier to the throne, as well as as a family man, he takes revenge on Macbeth for his uh, cruel act of murdering the whole family with the child. And here I have given the historical background. We could see what is given in the Horatians Chronicles and how far Shakespeare's play deviate from the real fact, and how fictionally Shakespeare has manipulated the history and created a wonderful piece of tragedy. In Horatian Chronicles, we could find Malcolm as who is the grandfather of Duncan. He reigned Scotland since 1018, and Duncan, the king of Scotland, reigned from 1034 to 40. In Horatian Chronicles, as we have already seen, is young, weak, and ineffective ruler. Whereas in Shakespeare's play, we could see Duncan as a old, strong, and wise personality who is also very much kind and compassionate to others. Um, Macbeth ruled in Scotland from 1040 to 57, whereas Shakespeare portrayed him as a king who ruled over a year, not even over a year especially. And we could see in Collinson Chronicles, Macbeth has a respectable claim to the throne through his mother's side, because Macbeth was a cousin to Duncan. So, as Shakespeare has portrayed, Macbeth has no legitimate claim to the throne, but we could see Macbeth as a cousin, and he claimed to the throne by fighting in the battle, and he won the battle, and he got the throne. The battle in the next battle, where Macbeth fought really fought was near Elgin, but the final battle was fought near Burnham Hill in Berkshire. Malcolm Duncan, and Macbeth dies at Lumphanan, where he was defeated and killed in 1057. But here we could find Macbeth dies at Dunsinane Hill, where there was a battle. And next we have Macbeth and Banquo uh, together plot the murder of Duncan, um, whereas Shakespeare has presented him as a murder. Macbeth, Shakespeare presented him as a loyal. Banquo is presented as a loyal general who joins hands with the Malcolm, but he lost his life uh, because Banquo is an ancestor of King James First. When the play was published in the 16th century, King James First was ruling, so Shakespeare could not write anything against the ancestor, and portraying him as a murderer would have been highly risky for Shakespeare. So he avoided such kind of portrayal. And thank you all for your patient listening.